Hello and welcome. Oh, I've just suddenly thought I need to check my microphone. Helps, doesn't it? Yes, I'm on my snowball here, just checking all systems are running. And now that we're on, I'll be better turn my heater off. Okay. Yes, that makes sense, doesn't it? Turn your heater off, Steph. Then hopefully everybody can hear me okay. So, welcome. You can actually, that side. You can actually see my sign today, Stephanie Lester, Fibre artist. And today what I want to do is to show you around the tools that I use to not just make the sculptures really, but also to prep the fibres. If I look over to my right, like that, it's because I'm looking to see if I'm actually live. And I can't see that I'm live at the moment, so just one sec. Okay, I'm going to check again. This might be a bit of editing out, mightn't it, in the post-production. Oh no, there you go, I can see myself. Fantastic. And that way, you see, I can see if you've put any messages because I can't see it on this screen. So there you go. Right, good to go. Fantastic. So yeah, what I want to talk to you today is about all the tools that I use which go into prepping the fibres before I even start the felting process, and then also some of the tools that I use during the process, because I probably don't show them very much when I show my videos of pieces. I guess it's I always think it's exciting for me, but it's not necessarily going to be exciting for everybody else. So I have some weird and wonderfuls, and I think some of them, well, one of them in particular looks a bit like a torture chamber. So, you know, we look forward to seeing that. So, firstly, sometimes we buy the wool from places like World of Wool or Crafty Kit Company, and they're already prepped. But then, even though they're prepped, you might actually want to do something differently with them. Additionally, I sometimes buy sheep's wool which has just been sheared, so I have to actually wash it and prep it, and quite often I will use that for core wool rather than from the difference between the core wool and the final layer that you get to see on the sculptures is the core wool has basically been washed and carded, and I have a carding machine to show you. Oh, yes you are, Steve. Yes, hello Mac, hello Steve, brilliant, good to have you on board. I've got a carding machine. In fact, if I point the right way, oh god, I'd make a really bad weather girl, wouldn't I? I always say that. There, it's my carding machine, and I shall bring that to the front in a moment and show you why we use a carding machine. But first of all, and I guess I should get that ready for you first, is the torture chamber, which when you wash wool, well I guess we all know, don't we, when we wash our jumpers and things, quite often it doesn't necessarily felt, but it clumps up a bit, and that's why when we take our jumpers out of the washing machine we either dry them flat or stretch them a bit if they've lost their shape. It's exactly the same with the loose fibres. When you get them from the sheep and you wash them, they clump up a bit, not necessarily felting, and so you need to use what is called a picker. Okay, and I'm going to put it on the table behind me. Let me move some of these little things out of the way first. Let me move that out of the way. My blending board, which I will show you. Okay, now then, are you ready for this? Yes, you can see that. Look at that. Now, if that doesn't look like a torture chamber, a torture, a tool of torture rather than a torture chamber, isn't it? But basically, what you have here are obviously a bed of nails above and a bed of nails behind, and I would normally do this outside, number one, and also clamped to a table. But you can see with the bit I've got in there that just by pulling it backwards and forwards, it basically pulls out those clumps. And obviously I don't put my hands anywhere near it. She's now looking for the, oh, there it is. With this marvellous wooden tool that I would actually push the wool in this way in order to obviously keep myself and my fingers away, and then that would push the next bit in, which would then catch it. And as you can see, because I haven't got it clamped down, I'm having to work at it a bit. But you can also see how when it comes out, I guess you can also see it's not exactly a light piece of work. You will feel like you've had a nice workout by the end once you've actually done this. And it's why when I do it, it has to be a nice day, have to be outside with the chairs, give it a good old go, and you do quite a lot at a time. It's not something that you get out, do a couple of pieces and then get it ready. But it's also why over in my racks over there, I've actually got wool in bags which has already been washed, ready to go through the machine when I can get myself together to do it. And also behind my sign here, I've actually got a freezer where I've actually prepped fibres ready to go at all the different stages, so that when I'm ready to go I can get on with it. So I'm going to take that off now. That was just a brief introduction to the workout. I suppose I could actually put together a woolly workout, couldn't I? Get your picker out and do your woolly workout. There must be some sort of muscle that you're exercising in order to do that. But joking aside, it's if you don't do that, then you more than likely are going to need probably a bigger one than this, but a dog brush or something, and you would have to actually individually go through and stretch things out before it goes through the carder. There is no way you're going to get the fibres through the carder if you haven't actually picked it or stretched it, which you can do by hand. You don't absolutely need the picker. And I guess if you've got very small amounts, that's perhaps someone has given you a small bag of wool and you've washed it and you want to get it ready for felting, then you could actually pick it out individually with your carding brush. And also, I'm just trying to think in terms of, because I'm going to put mine through a carding machine. So basically you would use these to pick it and then to card it, but it would take quite a lot of effort by hand. But if you've got a small bit, you could do it basically. So I guess the next thing to show you is the next step, if I'm doing it in the steps as we go. So let me see if there's any questions first. Looks like a mini swing with nails. Yes, Mac, it is a mini swing with nails. Not a swing you'd want to put your child on, let me say. Oh dear. But yeah, pretty much it's a swing. And actually the setting up of it to actually get the nails so they're in, because obviously you can have it so it only just catches. So if you had really tough wool, you might want to hire it up so you actually go put it through a few times basically in order to stretch it out. I mean, sometimes you might see things where people have said, oh, it's a really dirty fleece or it's more trouble than it's worth. It'll be because it's really clumpy and really dirty and it takes an awful lot of effort to pick it out and then to actually use it. But you decide basically how much effort you want to put in. So once you've actually got it picked out and it's looking looser, let's say, you need to get it into a state that you can then use it to felt it, or in the case of spinning, so that you can actually spin it and then use it for knitting and weaving and other such things as that. But there are lots of different stages that it can go through to get it to whichever stage you want. Now carding is perfect for needle felting, because the way the machine prepares the fibres is it mixes them up so they're not all going straight, but in a kind of uniform way. So when you take it and wrap it round things and use it, you can actually guess and know how you're going to manipulate it and what shape it's going to do, as opposed to if you had clumps here and clumps there. You would roll it up and then one end would actually be, you know, thicker than the other end. Hence, I mean, I used the phrase the other day, which is fluffy is flexible. So it's like once you've carded it, it's all nice and fluffy. And so we spend our time, number one, putting the air into the fibre and then basically squishing it out. But it's so that you're basically getting it into a form that you can actually then sculpt it, and at that point you're then going to condense it. That's pretty much the process. So let me bring around my carding machine, which is on wheels, you'll be pleased to know. Bum, ba-dum, bum, bum. Bum, 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 bum. There we go. We can see that, can't we? Yes. So that's just the I have actually, well, it helps if I put it the right way around, doesn't it? So we've actually got the handle this side. This is actually attached to the trolley. Now, another little thing you'll be pleased to know, I don't waste anything. This is my waste, as I call it, my waste tray. So whenever I come to the end of the project, I always have, you know, masses of bits and pieces that I'm not going to use, or I can't be bothered to separate out and put back into where it came from. So I basically, for those bits, put them in my waste bucket, and then I card them again through, and it makes really good core, because basically it mixes it all up, and so it's quite a mixed up colour, but it doesn't matter because it's actually going to be in the core of my project. And you know, we use a lot of core, especially when you're making something like or you can just see it, my elephant over there. Okay, let me just check to see if there are any more questions. No, right, so this is my carding machine. Now let me go over this side. I think, is this side going to be better to show it? Yeah, bring it into shot a bit more. Whoops. Manipulation. Right, so this is my handle. I've got a porcupine spine, which is really good for picking out the bits. Now, as you can see, I've got some little ends of fibres from the last time I did some carding. So more often than not, we will take that off, even with our little spine, pull out the little bits which are left. But because I'm just going to do a little bit of a demonstration for you here today, I won't worry too much about that. So for instance, I've got bits and bobs. In fact, some of that is alpaca. I've got some glistening bits, all sorts, and you quite literally put it under this. You see there's a little roller here and a big roller here, and you turn the handle. There we go. You can see that, just about. Yeah, and it draws it all onto this bigger brush. Now, there we go. These have been made by a fabulous company called Ashford in New Zealand. But you can see that's a little bit clumpy there, so I actually have my brush that I can put on top, which will hopefully smooth that down a bit and get that going. But basically you put it through and then it comes out onto this. We take it off and it's a matte, which I want to show you a texture, because for me to do that would be a waste of your time. But basically it brings it out as a bat, which is lovely, and get that into that camera, lovely and uniform, but nevertheless all crossed up fibres, which is a brilliant start for when you want to actually start felting. So yeah, there's my little doffer to pull it off. This isn't a full-on instruction for each item. If anybody wants to know how to use any of the things, masses of stuff on YouTube, or I'm obviously happy to go through it, but I just want to briefly introduce you to my little tools. Now, there is such a thing called a blending board, which really you need to have your fibres already either combed or carded before you use it on that, because it's not actually going to it's not going to organise the fibres, it's just going to blend the colours. So let me, she says, because I've put it down, here we go. Blending board. Right, so when you've got a few colours, you might have you know, a light blue and a dark blue, and you want to mix it up so it's a medium blue. It's the same way. Oh, let me put that on the floor because that's just going to get in my way now. Oh, there we go. There we go. It's just the same as paint, which is you can make whatever colour you want just by mixing them up in the same way as paint. But obviously, if you've just got your little brush, you can only do so much, and that's fine if you've got a little project and you just want to, you know, do some ears or something, a particular colour. In fact, I've got some blue in there now. I'm just suddenly looking around to see, I'm sure I had a colour which we could put down there and join up so that I can actually show you. Just a second, I'll be with you. Ooh, there we go. No, it's not in there either. This is where I wasn't quite as prepared as I thought I was going to be. Okay. Shall I just grab a couple of random colours then? Yeah, okay. I'll grab them out of my waste bin, just to show you how it works. Let's find some random colours. And actually, this is a good way if you want to mix in some fibres, which probably you wouldn't normally find. So for instance, if you want to put some silks in with the wool to get a nice sort of textured effect, the blending board is a brilliant way of doing it. So I've got some these are bamboo fibres with wool fibres, and you can just blend them all together on this blending board. Now let me show you how that actually works. Make sure I've got my see if we can see it. There we go, we can see that, can't we? Right, so I'm just going to do a little strip, but obviously you can do the whole mat, but you just quite literally pull it down and let it catch into the, this is like a little bed of well, it's wires, but I think we call them teeth probably. And once again, you can, you know, blend it the first time like you would with paint. You might blend it the first time and then think, oh, actually should put a little bit of yellow in there. Now, as you can see, this is still, I don't know if you can see. Can you see that it's coming up off a bit? So by using the little brush, we can get it so it's well held within the teeth. And then let me put my nice little shimmery number on there too. Here we go. And a bit of yellow. Haven't really caught that very well, so I'm going to hold that there. Now, depending, I'll sit down so you can see me. Depending on what you want to do with this, you can just pull it off so you can use it for felting. But there are these wonderful little battens, shall I call them, rounded battens, that if you wanted to roll up what's called a row leg, which people use it for spinning. So that's why I say these tools aren't just for needle felting, they're for spinners and for just preparing wool for whatever process you then want to put it through. So I'll show you what you would do if you would roll it up. So basically you would start to pull it off of the mat and you would roll it up. Now this is where the porcupine would come in handy. Hopefully you can hear me in the microphone there. The porcupine comes in handy because as you roll it up, if you haven't quite caught all of the fibres, you can roll it round. Okay, now I'm going to undo that because for me I would just pull it up. Okay, and so I have very loosely blended that, so I could easily now put that back down and blend it some more. There we go. Pull that off, and keep blending it basically. And obviously this piece of equipment isn't quite so big and chunky as a carding machine, and obviously isn't quite as expensive as a carding machine. So a blending board, and once again you would just put it up and keep mixing it basically until you're happy with your colours, which you would then take off and use in your felting project. Let me move that out of the way. There we go. Bring those combs to the front. So once again, we're still in the preparation stage. We still haven't done any felting whatsoever, which I suppose that's why, it's great that you can actually get the wool which is already prepared, or you can actually take it back to basics yourself. And some people actually have their own sheep, and in fact you can buy the fleeces from people who have their own sheep as well. So if you really want to use a sheep that you know the name of, and then you could even dye the wool, so you can take it to whatever level of detail that you want to. So the only other thing I think I'll show you today, which is for the prep, is the combs, because quite often people on the groups say, oh, I've got some wool but it's really long, and it doesn't seem to be felting very easily, and that's more than likely because it's actually been combed, and it might have been combed into a slither, so that's actually like a small, so it would be a much smaller, longer piece like that, as opposed to a bat, which basically is, if it came straight off of the carding machine, it would be that wide. And that's because the process of combing actually separates the hairs and has them all going in the same direction, which is brilliant for when you actually want to produce a top coat of, say, fur, where you actually want them to be all loose and everything. So when something's been combed, let me just briefly show you what that means. These are very sharp again. We love using very sharp inputs, so can you see this? So that's a comb. Okay, so you have one of them which is actually strapped to the bench. I mean, I have seen people do it in their hands. Yeah, good luck with that. So you basically get the wool onto the combs. Once again, I'm not going to go into the full technique of doing this, but just to show you, so this is something which has been previously carded, and so, oops, she drops it on the floor. This has been previously carded, so it's got mixed up fibres, so it's me now trying to separate them. So basically you then use this bed of nails, as it were, the comb, and you pull it across and down, across and down, across and down, and basically I'm transferring the fibres. Can we see? I'm transferring the fibres onto here, and you go backwards and forwards several times until you've actually got them quite separated. I am actually using quite a crinkly wool here, but basically the more you do it, the more straight it will be. There we go. Pop those down. And obviously, as I say, you can actually use dog and cat brushes to do your own little mini blending as well. So, there we go. Okay, no questions. So you're either transfixed or just thinking, what the hell is she talking about? Okay, so that's all for prepping of the fibres that I go through. I'm trying to think, is there anything else of prepping? No, those are my main machines that I use, and obviously washing and a spin dryer. I have a spin dryer just for wool, by the way. I don't share my spin dryer with my clothes, with my wool, you'll be pleased to know. So just to very briefly then say, when I'm actually making my pieces, there are a couple of other things that I use a fair amount, and a few of them you might be surprised about. I use hair straighteners, which is one of the things that I get asked a lot is when it comes to making things like ears, because they're quite thin, and obviously you start felting it flat, and use your needles on a mat, and when you take it off it fluffs it up quite a lot, and it can be quite frustrating, and if you need it really, really thin, like I did for my feathers for my kestrel, to have some hair straighteners that you can actually put the wool in between and just give a good old with steam, and makes it very, very flat, which is so hair straighteners are a marvel. On the other side of it also, nothing wrong with a little curling tong. If you need to, you know, curl the edge of an ear or something like that, and just to make sure, because you can bend felt and things obviously, but the best way to keep it in place is if you steam it, and then it's like more of a permanent bend and things. Okay, yeah, so apart from that, obviously needles and all the normal. Let me have a double check, see if I've got anything else. No, so that's kind of like a whistle stop tour of the tools in my studio. I've hit the 30 minutes already, but if anybody has any questions, or if that was too much of a whistle stop tour and you'd like to see something in a bit more detail, then, you know, please do shout. There are many, I mean, I use things like skewers and all sorts, but you know, that's probably for another day. You can basically buy everything fully prepped and ready to go if that's how you want to start your needle felting journey. But you can also, as I say, buy a sheep, call it Clara, have her sheared. You can even learn to shear herself if you're worried about, you know, the shearing process, and wash the wool, prep the wool, dye the wool, and then you can truly say you know exactly where every strand of wool came from in your project. Anyway, so that's me today, showing you some tools in the studio, and I will be back next week. Not sure what the subject will be yet, but I will see you then. So speak to you soon.